Using AI to improve your CRM game with today's special guest, Michael Hudlow, on the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. So, Michael, I'm excited to have you here because a lot of people are focused on AI for generating content or AI outward, but I'm really interested in AI inward, how AI can help me to be more efficient, whether it's organizing my emails or organizing my customer flows and keeping track of which communications we have with which customers. But I'd love to start at the top because a lot of people maybe not familiar with the term CRM, or they're not really sure which part of their business they're using as a CRM. So let's just start right at the top and give people a basic understanding of what a CRM is, how it fits into a business, and why every business kind of needs to have one.
Sure, that's a great topic, and thanks for having me. It's interesting because you're correct. The concept of CRM currently really is really meant to be a system-based, high-tech way of coordinating all of your customer information and putting it in such a place that it is easily recalled or even provides insight into that information to help you make better business development decisions. What's funny about it is that, at least funny for me, so you can see if it's humorous to you or not, is that everyone is already using a CRM system of sorts. It might be on a spreadsheet, it might be on a scratch pad on your desk, but it is a system. It's just probably not a great system. Modern CRM systems, and usually the big ones that come to mind are Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, SAP, but there are 50, 60 more CRMs out there, some for niche markets, some are just more affordable. Sugar CRM, and also one that's coming on very strong in the past few years is HubSpot. It's HubSpot. And what does a characteristic of a good CRM that is successful? What I tell individual, usually leaders at a firm, is the bigger systems are expensive. And the only way you're going to get your value out of them or increase the ROI out of those systems is to embrace it yourself as a leader and promote it and champion that system. And the other thing I tell people from the highest level is you have to figure out a way to tell everyone at your firm to welcome a sharing attitude. All of these systems rely on data. If you have salespeople or whomever that are saying, yes, I'll use the system, but I'm not really going to give you all my best stuff, then the system just isn't going to work well. And I just think that's something that everyone has to keep in the back of their mind, that the technology is a change, but the process is also a big change at your firm.
You've dialed into what I think is the biggest pain point of CRMs, or the hurdle, which is getting people to actually put the data in. So if someone is doing 20 phone calls a day, and then they say, oh, if I start filling in all this data, now I can only do 18 phone calls a day, I'm going to make less money. So there's this trade-off, right? And it's the trade-off doing and preparing. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. They go, I'll do all my calls and then I'll do my CRM at the end of the day. By the end of the day, you can't remember who's who. And I use two CRMs. I use a personal CRM because I can't always remember who people are, and then a business one to manage clients and customer flows. So I know if I say I'm going to do it later, but at the end of the day, I can't remember what I talked to each person about. So I know you talk a lot about AI, and this is one of the things that's really interesting to me is how can AI help people to solve that particular pain point, or what's the solution besides getting people excited by it, which is to add in more of an automation element or something that makes it easier to get the data into the CRM.
So there's a couple of different points there. Firstly, I'm going to do it just real casually, quickly, without even the AI component. What you just said is absolutely true, and it is one of the hugest hurdles to overcome. If you are a project person implementing a new CRM system at a firm, it's what I call the naysayers, the people that are inadvertently saboteurs because they are a user that is in a point of respect or higher up on the hierarchy chain, but they themselves are not using the system to the best of the advantage. So as a result, all of the individuals who report to them they're not going to do it either. That just happens all the time. So I think from a non-AI perspective, what you said is true until the system has enough information itself to start prompting you, saying, so you don't have to put in the information. The information is coming to you and saying, and then obviously all of this gets augmented and improved with the implementation of AI that can also help out with these things. But it's more you get up and rather than opening up your computer and saying, what do I do next? Or open up your black book of contact, the system itself can say, hey, it's Monday. Here are the 15 people that, either you haven't called or they've called you. And then you just run down a list. And by running down that list, it's documenting that you did whatever, write an email, make a phone call, whatever you had to do. And therefore it actually becomes less. But yes, there is a little bit of it's like you have to go uphill a little bit and then you have this long coast afterward. But that initial uphill battle, which can be alleviated to some degree by good data, the system having access to good information, that helps out a tremendous amount as well. Now, with AI built into it, not only are you getting, like with a pure CRM system, you might add a contact and you might say, hey, reach out to this person every quarter, whatever it may be. But with an AI component, and then obviously it will do those things. But with an AI component, it's much more like it's looking at everything and it will be able to say, that company that is on your hit list was in the news today and they said this, and this is where these are the kind of product solutions that we have. Reach out to that person today. And obviously, or not obviously, I shouldn't say that. You also have the fact that AI, there are many tools built into, and then third-party vendors that make tools that will write that email for you. Will write the script for your phone call. And with very little review, you're off to the races and you've done much less than you would have pre-AI. So in my scenario right there, you really have two different things. An AI looking at forecasting or helping you build your business development pipeline. In addition, you have the AI also looking at what that company needs based upon what you've told it to look at and writing a script down. There's another component there that also it can do, if you wanted to, is it can also reach out to your colleagues that you, as I mentioned before, sharing with, that say, these are the top 3 people who have that skill set. This is there. And obviously you can just keep going with that. You can even make a small, nice pitch deck that you shoot over. And by doing so to a company saying, hey, remember me, here's what we can do. And here's how we could help you with that. And you want to talk. All of those things can happen almost automatically. And obviously it takes a little bit of work there, but those tools are out there now. And in the business development world, being the first person to reach out to a company that has an issue is huge. So that's really where things are picking up.
What about for people that are not doing phone sales?
Yeah. I said before, the phone sales, it can do a script, but it can also, and I have to say, and I've mentioned this actually to leaders at Salesforce, I think their name is not fair to what they do. And I think CRM is a much bigger envelope now, even than it was a few years ago. And most of those tools that I've mentioned do much more than a traditional CRM as defined, 10 years ago. It doesn't have to be for sale. It doesn't have to be for cold calling. It could be for professional services firms. Use them all the time because they are capable of managing your intellectual property. So in the same scenario that I just gave before, you can have AI looking at your top clients that you are servicing or that are in your pipeline that you are interesting, or even help create that pipeline based upon what's happening in the world. But it can also search through the thousands, tens of thousands of intellectual property that your firm is storing that could be relevant to that business development activity. And then as a result, rather than trying to scratch your head, you now have a custom library made for yourself from which to build a response to an RFP if it goes that far. But not only do you have the intellectual property that you used before, you also have examples of what you've done case study wise at these other previously. And you also know the talent that you have available to you. So, whether you're a salesperson, you're a manufacturing firm or a professional services firm or a law firm, all of these things become relevant. Look, I'll give you an example as a law firm. law firms, when working on, and this is just an example, so, take it for what it's worth if you can relate to it. But law firms are constantly reusing engagement letters. And this also works for a professional services firm. Engagement letters, but they have carve out where it says, oh, this one thing has to happen by this date, or this happens, or we're not going to do this. You can have these systems track those carve outs, track those conditions, and even mention to you or remind you of saying, hey, are we addressing this? Are we keeping their data in this kind of place? So that's why these systems are becoming so much bigger than they ever were. They are just morphing into a overwatching brain that is sitting in the background that has access to everything. And you have access to it too, but you just can't make the decisions that need to be made as quickly or as efficiently.
So for a smaller business who's looking at all of these CRM options, Salesforce charges a percentage of sales, and someone who's much smaller is looking for something that's much more affordable. What are the kind of elements to look for in a CRM? What are the most important things? Because a lot of them have a ton of features you're never going to use. For a smaller company, Salesforce has all of these features. They go, I'm only going to use like 3 of them. How do I figure out what's the right critical element and what right for
Well,
someone like me?
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, first, for most companies, Salesforce is per seat cost. If you get into very specific point of sale, then when you get into other things, but for most companies, they're playing a per seat as opposed to a percentage. But the question is a good one. Here's what I would do. I would look at, before you start looking at, and this is one of the common mistakes I talk about in my book, before you go looking for anything. And I know this sounds very obvious, but unfortunately, or fortunately for me, it is a hugely common mistake. Before you go looking for a CRM system of any size and of any value, make sure you're looking at it for a problem that is, let's just say, broken right now at your organization, or some major hurdle that is stopping you to get to the next level. Make sure you look at it with a monetary eye, meaning don't do it because everyone else is doing it. That's way too easy. Look at it specifically to solve a specific problem that will also help you dial in which CRM package is best for you. Now, if you were to do a search, because I can't give an answer to a question like that outside with giving specific recommendations, and I know that wasn't what you were asking, but I want everyone to be clear. There are so many niche CRM systems out there that there might be one if you're a jeweler or a travel agent or a whatever. And using travel agency as an example, you are correct. You could buy the full Salesforce and you could make that full Salesforce into what you wanted. That's going to take some knowledge or quite a bit of knowledge to do it, but you can do it. And they are great for big companies because big companies do lots of different things, and each department, each geography can customize it. But for your scenario, let's just say I'm a local travel agency and I need a CRM. There are almost certainly CRMs out there that are absolutely targeted for you. They're smaller, so they're going to be probably supported by a much smaller team of people. They're certainly going to be cheaper, but they're going to be probably bang on to what you need. So I would first take a look at those things. See, you type in travel agency CRM system and see what pops up. If you're in an industry that, let's just say you do that search and nothing specific comes up, I would go to the largest CRM that still has it's available to you for free. So for example, HubSpot, major player. 5-6 years ago, they were only targeted at smaller companies. So that's like in their DNA for a smaller company. The thing about HubSpot is, yes, it still has an interface that is very obtainable to manipulate for a smaller company, but it is able to expand out to the enterprise level now. So they've done an amazing job in the past few years. So if you were to download, let's, for example, HubSpot, and there are others out there, Sugar CRM, and unfortunately, the list is just too long to talk about today. But if you were to go to a HubSpot, those companies, including the larger guys, all have app stores similar to what you use on your iPhone or your Android or whatever. And many of them have people that have built templates, for lack of a better term, that work for an industry. So you could go, for example, and I'll just stay with HubSpot, but I'm not trying to just dial in onto them only. Download it, use it, get a free license, and then go look at their app store, and you may find your company there as well. But if you have somewhat of a technical leaning, then I would say don't be scared to try any of these middle market or smaller CRMs. They're all, for sure, the middle market ones are built very well, and you should be able to get it through with no problem. If you have no experience, I would still do the same search, but at the same time, I would probably go look on one of the online services like Upwork or any of those kind of things and see if you can hire somebody for cheap to do what you wanted to do. But I am going to go back to my first comment. Before you just buy something outright, write down on a piece of paper of what is failing at your company or something that is holding you back, and write it down and make sure whatever you're doing, those 2 or 3 things that you've highlighted are addressed. Because if they're not, you're still going to have to do them in the future world manually. And that's just going to scatter this whole process. And you're not going to meet your own expectations.
I think that's some really good advice. Where can people who want to learn more about you, check out your book, and maybe even have you help them set up their CRM, where can they find you? What's the best place to find you online?
My website is Bitsia, CRM, BITXIA, CRM.com. I'm on LinkedIn under my name. I'm not so sure there's any other Michael Hudlows. And I provide, what's interesting, and this is just not to scare anybody, but this is my opinion of the state of the industry right now. There are so many companies that are 3 years into or 2 years into using or starting their CRM system that are deeply upset because it didn't meet their expectations, or I spent X and I don't think I'm getting half of that money back. And it's a very common problem because I think there are some very basic mistakes that were made before purchase that were not addressed. And one of them happens to be what I was just talking about, not knowing why you're doing it. So yeah, you have to take some time. But I think what happens is, the good news is all of these systems are extremely capable systems. They're extremely capable from a technical standpoint. Don't be concerned, for the most part, that this system, hey, I needed to do this, it can't do that. It really doesn't happen too much anymore. It's much more likely that you want to do this, your partner wants it to do that way, and someone else in the firm wants it to do another way, and it doesn't meet anyone's expectations, and you just have this thing that is, mediocrity. So there are some, I tell people that the processes that you have now, write them down, say what you wish they were doing, and then take what you wish to be were doing into the system. Don't take your old processes. They almost never work.
Well, that's some sound advice. Thank you so much for being here for today's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you.